Have you ever been so certain of something that you'd stake your life on it, only to discover you might have been wrong? I live alone at the end of a gravel road miles from the nearest town. Most people would hate it. I love it, or at least I used to. My house sits in a clearing, surrounded by thick woods on all sides. The nearest neighbor is far enough away that I can't see their porch light at night. During the day, all I hear is wind moving through the trees and the occasional tractor in the distance. It's peaceful. It was peaceful. I work odd jobs and keep mostly to myself. I've never trusted banks much. Maybe that makes me old-fashioned. Maybe it makes me stupid, but I always preferred having cash where I could see it. Over the years, I'd saved quite a bit. Not enough to make me rich, enough to matter. A few $1,000s sat locked inside a heavy safe, bolted into the floor of a closet. Nobody was supposed to know about it. At least, that's what I thought. The first time I noticed something strange was late one evening. I was sitting on my porch drinking coffee when I caught movement near the tree line. It was subtle, a shadow, a shape, something standing between two pines. I squinted. The figure didn't move. For several seconds we simply stared at one another. Then I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself it was a deer, a stump, my imagination. The woods play tricks on your eyes. That explanation worked for about 3 days. Then I saw it again. This time it was closer. A man. At least I thought it was a man. Tall, wearing dark clothing, standing perfectly still, watching my house. I jumped from my chair and grabbed binoculars from inside. By the time I got back outside, the figure had vanished. I walked all the way to the tree line. Nothing. No footprints. No broken branches. No sign anyone had been there. The hair on my neck stood up anyway. After that, I started paying attention. Every evening, I'd check the woods. Every morning, I'd inspect the property. I convinced myself I was seeing evidence. Fresh tire tracks, bent grass, footprints. Most of it probably had innocent explanations. But once the idea got into my head, everything seemed connected. One night I heard footsteps outside my bedroom window. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow, deliberate. I sat upright in bed. The sound stopped. I grabbed my flashlight and looked through the blinds. Nothing. The yard was empty. I stayed awake until sunrise. The next day, I bought motion lights, then cameras, then another lock for the front door. Weeks passed. I started checking the camera footage every morning. Most nights showed nothing. Occasionally, there would be movement near the woods. A flash of something. A shape. A silhouette. Never clear enough to identify. Always enough to make my stomach tighten. I became convinced someone was watching me. Someone who knew about the cache. Someone waiting for the right moment. The logical part of my brain asked a simple question. How would they know? I didn't have an answer. But fear doesn't need answers. Fear only needs possibilities. One evening, I drove into town for groceries. While I stood in line paying, I noticed a man behind me. He wasn't doing anything unusual, just standing there. But when I left the store, he left too. When I pulled onto the road, I saw his truck behind mine. My pulse quickened. For 10 miles, he followed me. Every turn, every curve, every mile. Then he continued past my road without even looking my way. I laughed at myself, a nervous laugh. But that night I couldn't stop thinking about him. A week later, I noticed another stranger at a gas station, then another at a hardware store, then another sitting in a parked car near town. Different faces, different vehicles, yet somehow they all felt connected. At least they did to me. The cameras became an obsession. I watched hours of footage every day. I slept less. A lot less. 3 hours, sometimes 2. Coffee became my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The shadows in the woods appeared more often. Or maybe I simply noticed them more. Every glimpse felt like proof. Every unexplained sound became evidence. One afternoon, I found a footprint beside the house. A single muddy boot print. I stared at it for nearly an hour. Finally, I took pictures, measurements, notes. Looking back, I realize how insane that sounds. At the time, it felt necessary. That footprint consumed my thoughts. I convinced myself someone had approached the house while I slept. I started carrying a pistol everywhere, even inside. The gun became a comfort, a guarantee. If they came for me, I'd be ready. The problem was that readiness gradually became expectation. I wasn't preparing for an intruder anymore. I was waiting for one. The difference mattered. I just didn't recognize it. The breaking point came during autumn. The leaves had begun falling. The woods looked thinner than usual. Visibility between the trees had improved. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, it made things worse. Now I could see farther, and every distant shape looked human. Every shadow became a threat. One night I woke to voices. At least I thought they were voices. Whispers. Several people speaking outside. I froze. The whispers continued, too quiet to understand, loud enough to hear. I grabbed my pistol and crept through the house. The voices seemed to move around the walls, circling, planning, waiting. My hands shook. I called out. No response. The whispers stopped instantly. I threw open the front door. The yard was empty, completely empty. Not a single person stood outside. No vehicles, no lights, nothing. Yet I would have sworn under oath that I'd heard voices. The next morning I found myself staring into the bathroom mirror. I looked terrible. Dark circles under my eyes, pale skin, unshaven, exhausted. For a moment I wondered whether I should see a doctor. Maybe I wasn't sleeping enough. Maybe stress was getting to me. Then I noticed movement outside the window. A figure standing near the woods, watching. The thought vanished immediately. I wasn't sick. I was being hunted. At least that's what I told myself. Days later, I saw someone walking through the trees. This time, there was no doubt, no uncertainty, no mistaken shadow. A person. I watched through binoculars. The figure disappeared behind a cluster of trees. I rushed outside. By the time I reached the area, they were gone. But I found a broken branch, fresh, recently snapped. Proof. Finally, proof. That night I loaded my pistol and placed it beside the bed. I barely slept. Every creak sounded deliberate. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. Sometime after midnight, I heard the motion light activate. I sat upright instantly, my heart hammered. The light outside the bedroom window glowed. Someone was there. Someone had finally come. I grabbed the pistol. The light switched off, then back on, then off again. Movement. Definitely movement. I peered through the blinds. A dark figure stood near the side of the house. I couldn't see a face, only a shape. Human. Motionless. Watching. I called 911. No answer. I looked at my phone. No signal. The storm outside had apparently knocked it out. Panic flooded through me. The figure moved. One slow step toward the house, then another. I left the bedroom and moved toward the living room window. The figure disappeared from view. My breathing became ragged. A loud bang echoed from the back of the house. I nearly dropped the gun. Another bang, then silence. I became certain they were trying to get inside. Everything I'd feared for months seemed to be happening. The waiting was over. The attack had begun. I moved toward the back door. The porch light illuminated part of the yard. Rain hammered the ground. The trees swayed violently. Then I saw someone, a silhouette near the shed, running toward the house. I didn't think, I reacted. I opened the door, raised the pistol, and fired. The figure collapsed immediately. The sound of the gunshot seemed to freeze the entire world. Silence followed, terrible silence. I stood there unable to move, unable to breathe. Rain soaked my clothes as I approached. The flashlight in my shaking hand illuminated the body. I remember every detail, every horrible detail. The mud, the blood, the face, a face I recognized. It belonged to a man who lived several miles away, not a close friend, but someone I'd spoken with before, someone real, someone ordinary, someone who definitely wasn't part of a conspiracy. I dropped to my knees. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. Why was he here? Why was he running toward the house? Why? The answer arrived when deputies showed up. My emergency call had eventually connected. Someone had been dispatched. The storm delayed them. When they questioned me, one deputy asked a simple question. "Did you know he volunteered with the search and rescue group?" I stared at him. The deputy continued. Apparently, the man had been helping look for a missing hunting dog. Witnesses had seen him searching properties throughout the area, including mine. He'd likely spotted something near the shed and run toward it. The banging noises? A loose shutter slamming against the house in the storm. The motion lights? Branches blowing through their sensors. The figure in the woods? No one knew. Maybe hunters, maybe neighbors, maybe nobody at all. As dawn approached, another deputy sat across from me. He spoke carefully, like someone handling explosives. He asked how much sleep I'd been getting. I didn't answer. He asked whether I'd been hearing things, seeing things, feeling watched. The questions made my stomach sink, because the truth was obvious. I'd been hearing whispers, seeing people, tracking strangers, building theories, collecting evidence, living in fear for months. A doctor evaluated me later that day. Severe sleep deprivation, extreme paranoia, possible psychosis. Those were the words used, words that still echo in my head. The thing is, I want to believe them. I really do, because if they're right, then there's an explanation, a tragic explanation, but an explanation nonetheless. The problem is what happened afterward. 3 weeks after the shooting, I returned home. The investigation was still ongoing. I barely slept. I barely ate. The house felt different, smaller, haunted. One evening, I sat on the porch staring at the woods. The sun was setting. The trees glowed orange. I remember thinking maybe the doctors were right. Maybe every shadow I'd seen had been imagined. Maybe every figure had been a trick of exhaustion. Maybe none of it had ever been real. Then I noticed movement. A person, standing among the trees, watching me. My chest tightened. I rubbed my eyes. The figure remained. I looked away, looked back, still there, completely motionless, just like the first one. I whispered to myself that it wasn't real. It couldn't be. The doctors had explained everything: fear, stress, sleep deprivation, psychosis. I repeated those words over and over. The figure slowly raised one arm and waved. A chill spread through my entire body. I blinked. The figure was gone. Maybe it was real. Maybe it wasn't. I honestly don't know anymore. What I do know is that I sold the house 6 months later. I moved away from the woods, away from the isolation, away from the memories. Sometimes late at night, I still wake up convinced someone is standing outside my window, watching, waiting. Most of the time, I can convince myself it's all in my head. Most of the time. But every now and then, I remember that final figure waving from the trees. and I find myself wondering whether I suffered a psychotic breakdown or whether I made the mistake of stopping my investigation just before I learned the truth. If you enjoyed tonight's story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. And if you have a creepy story of your own that you'd like featured on Tales Time, send it to talestime@gmail.com. Your story could be next.